Hey roamers, Jamie back at you. Here's what we got going today. We're officially starting Rosie 2's renovation. And what we're going to start with is these nasty Valances. We got these Valances here. These are the original ones from when it was built back in 2006. And you can see right here, it's torn and getting discolored from over time. And they just need to go. And we're going to change those out. I'm going to make them out of wood, kind of like what I did with Rosie 1. I'll put a link down in the description below so you can check out all the videos we did of original Rosie's renovation. So we're going to go ahead and take these ones down. So you can just follow along with me as I tear these out of here. So my next step, what I need to do is I need to figure out materials as far as what I'm going to need. So wood and molding and things of that nature. So that's my next step. I'm going to figure that all out. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how I put them all together and all that kind of stuff. Now here's the back side of the Valance. And as you can see, it has this rib right here that goes down the center. This is the one that goes between two big windows where the chairs were. Now the first step is to determine how long we need it. So I'm just going to measure the old one. Looks like it was 62 1/8. So I'm going to take my new board here. I'm going to measure it down to 62 1/8 and I'm going to put a mark. And then I'm going to take my square. I'm just going to draw a line across here. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to just cut this to length. And then as you can see on this one here, it's basically rounded. Well, it's kind of rounded. There's a radius here, and then it goes into this round piece, and then another radius. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually angle mine on the ends here. I'm not going to do a radius. I'm going to do an angle. So I'm going to cut the angle on the one side, and then flip it over and do it on the other side. Now you can see I got it cut to length, and I've also cut the angles on both sides of the piece here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically create a profile around it with a router. So now I have my router set the way I want it. This is the plate that it's going to rest on when I'm routing. And I created a little bit of, I have my round over protruding a little bit, so it gives me a little bit of a profile look. I tested it out on a sample piece of scrap wood, and I'll show you that right now. So that's what it's going to look like. It's going to create this round over and give you a little bit of a ledge right there, give you a little bit of distinction so it doesn't look like a flat piece of wood. So I'm going to go ahead and do the whole perimeter with that, and then I'll show you the next step. Now my next step is I'm going to cut a board to basically go on the back. Talking about this piece here. So it needs to be 2 3/4. So what I have is I have a 1x6 here, and half of a 1x6 is 2 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and rip that down. Don't have a table saw, so what I'm going to do is I've got myself a nice straight board here. And what I'm going to do is I clamped it on this end and clamped it down on the other end down there. And then what I did was I measured over half, and then I measured another 1.5 inches to put my saw blade in the center of that mark. So this is 1.5 inches. So I measured that over on my straight edge here so that I know that when I make my cut, I'm going to end up in the right place. 2 3/4. So So we're good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut it to length, the same like this one. And then I'm going to mount it on the back of the piece that we've created. So now what I've done is I've determined the center of this board. It's 7 1/8. So I went over 3 9/16, which is half of 7 1/8. And I put a mark there. And I did that in 3 spots. Just so when I put my board on there, I know I got a straight line. The other thing that I needed to account for, my board is 3/4 of an inch thick. So over here, what I did is I moved over from the half line 3/8. That's half of 3/4, so that I know, and I marked that in all 3 spots, so I know that when I go and put my piece on there, if I hold it on that line, the board's going to be in the center. Now the next part is to put the L brackets on to support this. I had these left over from when we did the renovation on original Rosie. So I kept them luckily, and I'm going to use those, and I'm just going to screw, put a screw in there and put a screw in there, and that's going to keep it in place. So I screw it to this part first. That way I can position it correctly. I got one on each side in 3 different spots, and that keeps it all nice. It's nice and rigid. It's not going to go anywhere. This one's almost pretty much complete. All we need to do is fill holes, sand it, and then paint it, and then it'll be ready to mount in the RV. Now this is one of the side pieces that go with that middle piece that I initially just made. This is the old one. You can see it's just basically an L shape. So what I've done is I've already cut my boards to length, and I cut my 45 on this end. Now the next step is to router these edges right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the router out and router those. Now that we have all the side pieces assembled for the valances, we need to make the top pieces. Here's all the side pieces that I have finished. Cut them, routed them, nailed them, and then glued them, and then also put L brackets on the inside so they're nice and secure. So the next step here is putting the cross member that goes across the top. So I'm going to mount that now. I already put my side piece on here, cut a 45. Got to screw that down so it closes that gap up. Now what we need to do is make sure that we got it square. So on this routed edge on the inside here, I put the long end of my square on there, and then bring it up to the top here to make sure that this is sitting square. That's going to be for my screw. I'm going to countersink it so that the screw head sits below, because I'm going to put molding over top of that, and I don't want the screw head keeping the molding from sitting flat. Okay, now we got to do the bottom. The piece of molding that we have on the bottom is 3/4 of an inch wide, and so when I put my molding, I want it to cover up the screws. So I'm going to move over half of 3/4. I'm going to go 3/8, and I'm just going to draw a line there so that way I know where my screws have to go. So I'm going to drill it on that line, countersink both the holes. So now when my molding piece goes over, hold it right at that bottom edge, and you can see it's going to cover up those screw heads. So now what I need to do is I need to take this inside the motorhome to figure out where the piece that's going to go down there has to be in location here. Now what I did is I took my smaller window valance and I've mounted that, and then I've mounted the piece that goes down here on the long side for the long valance. You see I don't have the top piece on there yet. And then I mounted this other side. So I got both of those mounted on there. Next thing I need to do is measure the distance from the cabinet to this board over here, because that top piece is going to go from the cabinet all the way over to this piece, and just going to butt up on each end. So I'm going to measure what that is, and then I need to cut that piece to length and then also to width, because I made these 4.5. So I had to rip it down from a 1x6. So 1x6s are 5.5. So I just need to take 1 inch off of it. So it looks like we're 76.5. So I need to go cut a piece at 76.5 up here. The top piece is now mounted on there. The other thing that I did is I added my molding. So I added my top crown piece and then the bottom piece. So that's all on there. The next thing I have to do is add the crown piece here and then the bottom piece here, and then do my corner over here. So now I've completed the fabrication of the two main big valances in the living room area. I have them all mounted up and all the molding on. Still have to be sanded, primed, and painted. But then here's the other one, and did the same thing, just the exact same thing with the molding and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we got so far. Now the next step is we're going to fill all of these holes all the way around on both pieces, and then we're also going to caulk wherever we need to caulk, where there's gaps and things of that nature. The thing that I'm going to use for filling the holes is DAP's plastic wood. All you do is I scoop it out with my finger, put it over the hole. I let it set up for about a half an hour or so, and I come back and sand it all, and I sand it flat. And then the thing that's cool about this stuff is it doesn't shrink or anything like that. Now that we have everything sanded, the next thing that I did is I actually got a wet rag, and I wiped it all down to get all the dust off of it. Next step, what we need to do is put a good coat of primer on there. What I'm using is I'm using the Kills all-purpose primer. This is a water base, so you can clean your brushes and everything up with soap and water. So that's what I'm going to be using. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this up, put a coat of primer on here. I'm going to put a coat of primer on the front and also the back side. And then once that's all done, then we'll move on to actually doing the finish, the paint on there. Now that we have both pieces primed on both sides, the next step is to go ahead and paint them. This is going to be our color coat, and then the last thing will be a clear coat over top of it. The paint that I'm using, it's Behr Premium. It's the cabinet and trim enamel. It's actually got urethane in it, so it actually goes on a little smoother, and you have a little bit longer working time with it, and then it also dries a lot harder. Now that I've finished painting, I've put 3 coats on each side of the valances. The next step is I have to put some clear coat on there. So I'm going to put 3 coats of clear coat on each side as well. What I'm going to be using is this Minwax. It's a water-based acrylic clear satin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to spray 3 coats on it on each side, and then once that's all dried and cured, the next step is let's get them installed. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this now, and then once I have that all completed, I'll show you the next step of actually taking them in and hanging these up. Now that's the first coat for this side. I'm going to let that dry. It says here on the can that I can recoat in 30 minutes. So I'm going to wait about 30 to 45 minutes, go ahead and recoat it again. Do that a third time, let it really cure for probably a couple hours, then flip them over, do the back side, and then we should be all completed with the painting process. Now that I've completed all of the valances as far as fabricating them, priming, painting, and then clear coating them, now I need to install them. So next step here is I'm going to start installing the valances. I'm just going to kind of show you that process as I go along here. And then once I have them all completed, I'll show you all the valances and how they all came out. Okay, so I have them all mounted in. I had to do the side one first because it has a piece on the top that goes all the way to that wall. So then this big piece slides up in after this side one was mounted. And the reason being is because I have a 45 here. If I tried putting this one in first, it wouldn't have worked. So got it all mounted. So that's that one. And then I'll show you the other one that we did. Just on the other side of that cabinet here, we have another long one. And I mounted that the same way. Did this side piece first, and then slid the back one. Let me close this so you can see it a little better. And then I did this side one first, and then did the back one and slid it up in there. Okay, so we got the valances all completed. I've got them all mounted. And I wanted to show you what the finished product looks like. These are the ones that go behind the two recliners. So there's those ones. We got these ones here, and then these ones over on this side. This is the one in the bathroom. It doesn't have any sides, it just has the top piece. And then here's the ones that I completed in the bedroom. So that's on the small slide out, and that's on the one side of the bed, and then there's the one on the other side. And our color palette kind of came from this bedspread, basically. The last motorhome we did with grays and whites and dark stain. This time we wanted to do something with color. So we wanted to really have some bright, vibrant colors, and we kind of use this bedspread as kind of our template for what we're going to be doing. That's going to wrap it up for this video. We got the valances all completed, and that's just kind of the beginning of the renovation of Rosie 2. The next video is going to be replacing the old headboard in Rosie 2. It was kind of that brown and kind of the same colors that were in the old valances. We're going to take that down and we're going to put a new headboard in there that's all designed using the colors that are kind of in that bedspread. So make sure and tune in if you want to check that out. I put links in the description below for all the products used in this video. Hey roamers, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you know anybody that can benefit from these videos, I'd really appreciate it if you would share it with them. If you're not yet a subscriber, make sure and hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so you'll be notified next time we upload a new video. And make sure to leave a comment, that way you can be part of the conversation. Until next time, we'll see you.